Here we go, one more time. Everybody's feeling fine. Here we go now. Yes, 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 here we go. NSYNC has got the flow. I was jamming out to that song earlier, and I felt like sharing it with y'all. What's up, everyone? Dr. Mel here. Welcome to the Inspire Life podcast, video cast. Before you continue, I have an ask. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, comment below, like, and subscribe. This episode is going to be probably a little bit more emotional than most. So if it resonates with you, if you're listening on Spotify, if you're listening on iTunes, wherever it is you are tuning in, I invite you and I ask of you to give us a 5-star review or whatever star review that resonates with you. Hop on over to iTunes and give us a review and let us know what you think of the podcast. We have been creating this podcast now for, it's been almost 4 months. Can't even believe it. And people are really loving it. We are getting great feedback. We appreciate you all so much for tuning in. So if you like what you're hearing, share the love, spread the love. It is February after all. So spread the love, give us a review, give us a heart, give us a like, give us a comment, all of that. We would appreciate it so much so we can continue to create and bring to you amazing value. In this episode, y'all, is a tribute to my mother. I'm less than 2 weeks away from my wedding day, and I felt really inspired. It's been an emotional journey the past couple weeks. I felt really inspired to do a tribute to my mother because the more I reflect on her upbringing, not her upbringing, but my upbringing, the more I reflect on how she raised me, the more I am just in gratitude. The more I find myself so grateful for her persistence, her determination as a single mom, raising Michael and I basically by herself. And again, this is nothing against my father, but my parents got separated and then divorced at a very young age. And I love my dad dearly. I've done a lot of healing. My dad is still present in my life, and maybe I'll have a tribute for him down the road. But today I want to talk about my mother, my amazing mother. And I don't even know if my mom listens to our podcast, but hopefully she'll listen and tune in after this. And if she isn't and she hasn't, whoever is listening, share this with her. Get her on iTunes, get her on Spotify, get her on YouTube, Google Play, wherever she's listening, Libsyn. We're on a lot of different platforms now, thankfully, so she can tune in hopefully for free because that's how she rolls. So I wanted to share this too because, again, I'm less than 2 weeks away from my wedding. At this time, it's February 2020, February 11th, so I'm 11 days away. And I have been really reflecting on the support that my mom has been providing to me, not only financially for the wedding as a gift, but just encouragement and processing emotions. I did not realize how much weddings could bring up stuff. And a big topic for me and a big thing I've been really resonating with lately is this healing generational trauma. What do I mean by that? I can do another podcast, but basically, as we are born, we carry on traits we know genetically through our DNA from which our ancestors experienced. So for example, if your ancestors were slaves, if they were in the Holocaust, they dealt with trauma. And unless they work through that trauma a significant amount to create DNA changes, epigenetic changes, neuroplasticity, all right, we're back, people. I had a disk error, technology error. Getting back into it, though, I was talking about generational trauma, and if our ancestors have experienced trauma and their DNA is affected and they haven't worked through it, that will get passed down through the lineage. So, for example, like I was mentioning, if our ancestors dealt with slavery, Holocaust, genocide, any sort of trauma, that impacts our DNA. That impacts the sperm, that impacts the ovaries of your being. And we know that when a sperm and an egg come together, it creates a new human being that has all those genetic traits. So sometimes this generational trauma doesn't show up until later down the road. So that's why I'm talking about this, because I feel as though me speaking this into existence, me sharing my gratitude for my mother, which it hasn't always been that way, is actually really healing. So in this podcast alone, me speaking and using my voice, I'm finding is a form of healing for me, especially as I move into marriage. So growing up, My parents, and my mom in particular, never told me that I had to limit my dreams. She never told me to, think that I was too crazy or that I couldn't do anything. And she always believed in us. She said, Melissa, you can be anything you want to be. You can be anything you want to be as long as you set your mind and your heart to it. And I fully believe that. I was young and I remember her sharing that with me. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be all these things, which I still believe I am, and I fulfilled those dreams. But something that I really hold on to is this level of belief in myself. And she always believed in Michael and I. And while we were growing up, as I mentioned, our parents got divorced I was 10, Michael was 8. And I remember going through this time. There was a lot of instability in our family, of course. It was hard on everyone. My mom, my dad, my parents, my grandparents, myself, Michael. It was hard, and there was a lot of instability. And I remember in that time, my mom getting very, very depressed. Now, again, I share this story. She, of course, has her own perspective. I share it from my perspective as a daughter. And I remember my mom laying on the couch for a long time. Every single day, she would just lay on the couch after work. She would just lay there, and she didn't really have a lot of energy to do anything. And at the time, I didn't really know what was going on. I knew she was hurting, and I knew kind of what was happening. Our family dynamics were changing. And I just remember her being really sad and lethargic and not having a lot of energy. And now that I look back on that, being an adult and understanding neuroscience and trauma and relationships and how the body responds to grieving, my mom was totally grieving the loss of a relationship, and she was going through a bout of depression. And something I remember too growing up is my mom was never a huge person to suppress symptoms. She didn't bring us to the doctor a whole lot. She kind of just said, you deal with it. You deal with life, and your body heals. And I remember her laying on the couch dealing with this depression, and she didn't want to suppress it. She was grieving. She was dealing with it. She was totally in it. And again, at the time, I didn't really know what was going on. But now that I reflect back, seeing how that has impacted my way and my beliefs of how we deal with emotions, that when you have a loss, when you have a disconnect like that in a relationship, it is very important to grieve. It is very important to feel those emotions. And I think oftentimes we are so quick to jump into, oh my gosh, you have depression, you have to take something for it. When in fact, there's seasons of life, there's seasons of healing, and there's seasons of it's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel. Again, she was grieving the loss of a relationship. So I witnessed this, and I get older, and mind you, as I get into my teenage years, I'm definitely a troublemaker. I shouldn't say a troublemaker, but I tested the limits. We'll call it that. I tested the limits, meaning I'd sneak out at night, I'd go party when I was in high school, underage drinking, because when you live in a single parent home, you can get away with a lot more. And it's not that I disrespected my mom, but I was dealing with things in my own way. I was escaping in my own way. And I remember as I got older, a little bit older before I hit more of those teenage years, my mom went back to school because in her eyes, she had to provide for the family. She had to provide for Michael and I, being a single parent income. And we generally, she would make dinner, leave it, and go do her thing, go study. I remember my grandparents raising us a lot. They would take care of us as my mom was going back to school and dealing with her own stuff. So both my mom's parents and my dad's parents really took us under their wings, and they took care of us. And I'm so grateful. They're still alive today. They're in their 80s and they're doing well. And I'm so grateful that they're still in my life. And I have a lot of gratitude for that as well. But I remember my mom going back to school, studying at night, going back to school at night. And again, she had to do what she had to do to get by. And I saw that experience as a young woman, witnessing my mother go from depression, laying on the couch every day, feeling down on herself, to going back to school, to provide for her family and not give up and be persistent. And I share this because I think it's really important that when you are aging, when you're younger and you're growing up, your brain is like a sponge. And so we witness the world around us and we take on behaviors. And for you parents out there, even though you think your kids aren't watching, they are. And what you do shapes their world and in turn shapes their world. So it can go both ways, right? If they're witnessing things that maybe aren't serving of your values, their values, that can maybe go on a downward spiral, and vice versa. If they see you being persistent, they see you taking care of yourself, they see you being determined and never giving up, that shows up in their life too. And I know that to be true about myself to this very day. And I credit a lot of that to witnessing my mom being a super strong, independent woman. And she still is to this very day. And I'm very grateful that I'm able to put those pieces together. So anyway, as we age, my mom graduates, she gets her master's, and it was so cool. I remember being young with my aunt and watching my mom walk across the stage, and I might get emotional in this podcast, but I remember watching my mom walk across the stage and say her name, and just in that moment being like, wow, like you can do anything. Like, look at my mom do this. Like, I'm so proud of her. And mind you, we had our fights. I went off to college. I would come home from college and we would be fighting, and I had my own stuff with her and our lineage and our generation and shame and guilt and all of this. But I also do remember, beyond the trauma, I remember a lot of really amazing things. And it's amazing how when I reflect back on this, it was a traumatic, a lot of instability in my life, and there was a lot of learning and lessons and opportunities. And I wouldn't want it any other way, to be honest. Now that I reflect on who I've become as a woman, it's very powerful. Fast forward into my graduate years in chiropractic school, and I share with her that I have this vision. I have this vision to open up my own office right away after school. Granted, we all know, those of you who are doctors out there, or entrepreneurs, or maybe you did some form of graduate schooling, unless your parents paid for your school, you have school loans. Let's be real. Unless you somehow found an asset early on and you were able to pay for $200,000 of schooling within 3 years, good on you. Tell me what you did. But I was dealing with school loans, and I get that can sometimes defer and deter people from believing in your vision. And not for 1 second did my mom doubt me. Even though she knew I had my loans, she knew it was a lot of work, she believed in me. Again, she's believed in me my entire life. And there were people in my family who, they were questioning me, they were skeptical, saying, do you really want to do that? Don't you just want to get a job? And my mom from day one knew my vision. In fact, she had been a receiver of my early chiropractic care. She was one of my guinea pigs. And a lot had changed in her life after caring for her, seeing her anxiety reduce and her chronic pain start to disappear in her hips, and a lot of other things that, of course, she would share to the public. But she believed in me. She believed in me so much so. And being vulnerable in this podcast, she believed in me so much so 4 years ago that she put her house up for collateral for a business loan to start my vision that I've dreamed of for many, many years, to help people, to create a space, a community where people can come and get connected to themselves. She believed in me so much so she put her house up for collateral. And this house had been paid off, right? She put her house up for collateral to get a business loan. And I guess I didn't realize the impact at that time, but when I started sharing that with people, they were like, wow, my parents would never do that, or that's really hard to do, and it's really hard to get a business loan unless you have collateral. And my mom, I don't know, I should ask her how she felt about that now. It's been paid off, thankfully. Our practice has done well. We've helped a lot of people, and that business loan is no longer. It's been paid off much faster. But never once did she blink an eye. Never once did she have any sort of doubt in me. She said, if this is what you believe in, I have seen the benefits and I see your passion. Let's do this. So my mom's kind of like my business partner too, right? If I think about it that way. And I'm just so grateful for her belief in me. And I'm so grateful for her never giving up. I'm so grateful for her passion to continue moving forward for her children. And I cannot tell you, the more I see people believe in themselves and believe in their family members, belief, you all, is one of the strongest emotions. Belief is such a strong emotion. And I think she's had so much belief in me that in turn, that has rippled into me believing in me so much, even in those hard times. Never once do yes, I doubt myself, I'm human, but I believe in myself so strongly, and I believe in other people so strongly. I believe in the healing potential of the human body. So I share this podcast and I share this story because it comes back to whether you have a great relationship with your mother or not. And I get that sometimes our mothers can be a source of triggering. Our mothers can be a source of trauma, of annoyance. I find it so interesting because we all have a mother. If you're a human being here on planet Earth, you have a mother. You may not know her if you were adopted or maybe she's no longer here. You still came out of a vagina. You still came out of a womb, out of a uterus, out of a vagina. So in turn, biologically, you have a mother. And I find this concept so fascinating that we are half of our parents, right? We take their DNA and we're half of our mother and we're half of our father. And again, whatever your beliefs are, whatever your emotions are towards your family, towards your parents, I know that they can be sources of pain. You still have to acknowledge that they're part of you and you are part of them. And the more I have been able to connect to that and understand and put myself in my parents' shoes, that they were doing the best they could with the resources they have and had, it really helps me lessen the charge of the anger and the annoyance that I felt, that I don't feel as often towards my parents. So I share this too because I know generational trauma and epigenetic healing, epigenetic lineage healing is in the space for me at least, and I'm curious if it's in the space for you. The more I speak to this, the more I see my mother as a human being and express gratitude for her and know that I'm part of her. And there's so many great things I've learned from her. There's so many great things I've adopted just by being around her. The more I start to really feel that deeper sense of healing and love and compassion for her. It hasn't always been like that. There were times when I would feel weird just hugging my mom, and now I'm able to see her in a different light. And it's taken time, and I'm not saying you need to go out there and have a conversation with your parents if they're a huge source of trauma for you. I get that that's out there. But maybe this podcast provides you and invites you into different perspectives with your parents, whether they're here on this planet or not. Maybe there's something with your grandparents, whatever it is. Maybe this sparks something within you. Maybe this sparks something within you to give them a call and say, you know what? I love you. Like, you sometimes are a pain in my butt, but deep down, I really love you and I just want to connect with you. You know, one of a mentor that I tune into, Jay Abraham, he's a mentor of my mentors, talks about how we're all just a bunch of wounded children wandering around the planet trying to figure life out. Right? I mean, we all have that wounded part of ourselves. And as we become parents ourselves, that's a path you choose. Know that you have wounded parts of you that, guess what? You might pass on to your kids, and it's an opportunity for them to heal. It's an opportunity for them to continuously make change if we become aware of it and if we're conscious of it too. Thank you all for tuning in. Just want to give a big shout out as I have this whole podcast to my mom. If you are listening to this, if you tune into this, maybe I'm on my honeymoon, I just want you to know that I love and appreciate you so much. And I hope that you love and appreciate you. I know that you have your own demons just as I do, and I know that it's a work in progress, and I know sometimes you don't see yourself in that strong, confident light, but I want you to know that you are that to me. And no matter how many fights we've gotten into or we get into, or how much maybe there's still some tension there, I fully love and accept you unconditionally just as you are, and there's nothing wrong with you, there's nothing to fix. I sincerely want to share that from the bottom of my heart, that you're an amazing, badass, lioness mom, and I'm so grateful for you in my life, and I hope that you are able to receive that in a place of love and acceptance for yourself too. Love you, Mom. This is a tribute to you. I hope you listen to it. If you figure out technology, I'm here for you as your millennial daughter. And thanks for being my partner in life. Thanks for being my business partner, my mom. And thanks for just being you, Mom. I love you so much. And to all of our listeners, take care. I hope this brings you some inspiration. As always, keep inspiring. Bye. Hey there, did you find value in today's episode? We sure hope so. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
Also, hop on over to Facebook and join the Inspired Living community. There, Dr. Mel and I share health and wellness tips to help you live your most inspired and thriving life.
And as always,
keep inspiring.